saying a lot now, that's what I hear now, is that you should wait 5 days. For people that, if they get tested immediately, they'll, most of the time it's going down negative, and then 5 days later, they'll show up positive.
Okay, so Jay, I'm going to, so that's starting. So just wait a minute and then you can start talking and I'll pull the video down.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay. Jim, I'm ready when you are. I would like to call budget and appropriations to order at 6:45. I have one piece of business to bring before the committee tonight. Before I do that, I just want to thank the Vice Chair Kobus for covering for me last week while I was out with a medical issue. All good and on the mend. So thank you very much. The other thing, committee, what I'd like to do is start talking and get some probably off-night meetings, and I know it's a lot to ask, but I think we have a lot to talk about with the review of the fiscal policy, the cash reserve policy, and the vehicle replacement policy. So I will throw some dates out there by the end of this week, trying to get the ball rolling on that. It's something that I really want to make sure that we're keeping front of mind, and especially as the coronavirus continues to, we continue to learn more about the coronavirus and what fiscal 21 and fiscal 22 is going to look like.
Sounds great. Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I think, this council's going to end this term doing a lot of heavy lifting. So, all right, from the docket on November 17th, 2020, I move to transfer $230 from account 161010000-524240 library equipment maintenance to account 161010000-578020 library previous year's bills for the library to pay a fiscal 2020 bill from G&G Fire Protection.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. Again, this is for work that's already been done that came in after the fiscal year for just the fire protection, most likely checking the fire extinguishers. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We are adjourned at 6:47. Thank you.
Well, no, I'm just using my work laptop.
Hey, Jim Jones. Um, Jim,
The whole project
Yes,
is
Todd.
overall benefit.
Peter is having some computer issues. It may be an older version of Zoom, or at least he's seeing different options, but
Yeah.
audio isn't working. So I suggested that he drive into the studio and
You guys make your.
go to the
Okay.
video conference room. All right. So he's
Okay.
gonna try to reboot one more time, and if that doesn't work,
Okay.
he's gonna drive into the studio. All right.
Just have them come through the Union Street radio entrance.
Got it. Okay. We'll do.
Hi, Todd. Can you hear me? This is Sharon.
Yes, I
Thank
can
you.
hear you.
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't on mute again.
What?
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't muted again. Sometimes that happens. But I'm
Sharon,
all set, I can hear you.
Sharon, I can't hear you. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh. Yeah, because I wouldn't have known what to do. I'd be scrambling around here.
Counselor Dolan is shaking her head,
Yep.
rolling her eyes.
Yep.
Todd, Sharon, not you.
I knew that.
Peter, can you say something, Peter? Can you hear us? I just heard you. Peter, can you say something?
Todd, by any chance you hear me now? Huh?
I can
Yes,
hear you.
yep, we got you.
All
I
right,
did it
Peter.
4 times, same way, finally popped. Thank you.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Outstanding. All right.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. I'm so thrilled.
That sounds like sarcasm, Peter.
Huh?
Sounds like sarcasm, my friend.
Yeah, there was a little sarcasm.
All right.
Coming from me, I don't know how you could possibly think that.
That's a fair point.
Todd, did you end up going over the VFW the other night?
I did, and they said, thank you very much, and
I'll
I
stop by. I'll stop by the house, your house, and catch you.
I ended, it's not a big deal. I ended up playing cards and
Did
won
you?
pretty, yeah, I played cards for a while, and
You didn't take money from them poor old vets, did you?
I didn't want to, and I tried to donate it back into the Poppy Fund, and they wouldn't allow it. I'm just really good at poker.
Is that just after the meeting they have that card? Is that once a month or?
I think it's every Tuesday night. I've got to work tonight, but
No.
thanks for making me feel bad, though.
Yeah. You know, Todd, down by the mute button, there's a little sign that says mute my audio. I wonder if I had hit that.
Maybe.
And that's still up there. I never noticed that before.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 7:02. Ms. Ravad, would you kindly take roll call attendance?
Mr. Blair,
Here.
Ms. DeSimone,
Here.
Mr. Conti,
Present.
Mr. Waterman,
Here.
Ms. Jackson. Here. Mr. Delicio,
Present.
Mr. Cobus,
Here.
Ms. Dolan,
Here.
Ms. Reynolds,
Here.
Ms. Holmes,
Present.
President Cooper,
Yeah,
11 yeas, no nays.
thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Second,
Thank you. Motion is in order. The reason for suspending the rules this evening is we're going to take things slightly out of order. Nick Wiley from the Conservation Commission is here to give us the overview of the pre-disaster hazard mitigation plan. And then we will go into our regular agenda for this evening. So, Jim, you can bring, oh, actually, I got to vote first. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes,
11 yeas, no nays.
thank you. At this time, Jim, you can let Nick Wiley in, or is that him I see at AACS? I'm not sure.
That's me.
All right. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me. Jim Jones, is Jim Reardon currently with us as well? He has been promoted.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm here.
All right, excellent. Well, good evening, Council President Cooper and fellow city councilors. As you know, I am Nick Wiley, the environmental planner and conservation agent for the city. I appreciate you to accommodating us in your very busy schedule and agenda you have tonight. So joining me tonight is the senior project manager for Weston and Sampson, Jim Reardon. He is the consultant that was hired to help us update our 2009 pre-disaster hazard mitigation plan and incorporate the municipal vulnerability preparedness plan in with that. So we're here tonight to present those plans to you, and afterwards request your consent to send the plan to the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency and the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for further comment. As you may know, Gary Rajan was originally going to join us tonight, but unfortunately he cannot attend due to a family health emergency. So the purpose of this plan is to update the city's 2004 pre-disaster hazard mitigation plan and incorporate the state's municipal vulnerability preparedness program, otherwise known as MVP, into the same unified plan. The purpose of the hazard mitigation plan is to identify the city's vulnerabilities and weaknesses as they pertain to natural hazards and disasters, and then identify mitigation actions that will increase our resiliency and improve responses to natural disasters. The MVP portion of this plan addresses natural disasters similarly to the hazard mitigation plan, but focuses on natural disasters and impacts from a climate change perspective. To complete this process, Jim, can you switch over to the next slide? Thank you. To complete this process, Mayor Hero appointed a 26-member committee in the summer of 2019, consisting of our fire chief, police chief, local residents, local nonprofit organizations, and city employees from appropriate departments. In the interest of time, I will not name each member, but you can see the entire team on the current slide as well as in the plan itself. Jim, next slide, please. I'll give a quick brief overview of this project's timeline. The planning department received an $18,000 grant in the summer of 2019 from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as MEMA, to update the hazard mitigation plan. The city put up an additional $4,000 match for that grant. We also received $32,000 to develop our municipal vulnerability preparedness plan, otherwise known as MVP, from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs.
Put it all the way down and then actually closed the cover, opened it up. And this little.
Can you hear him?
Well,
Can you hear me, Peter?
I can hear you, Nick.
I can hear you.
All right. So in total, the city received $50,000 in grants to update the pre-disaster hazard mitigation plan and incorporate the MVP plan into that. From the course of August 2019 through January 2020, the core team met numerous times to help develop the plan we are currently presenting. In January 2020, we hosted a community resilience building workshop as part of the MVP program, which invited numerous community members that were not currently on the core team to engage in the planning process with us. Due to COVID-19, our timeline had a substantial shift, and our original completion date which was slated for June 30th, 2020, was adjusted to December 30th, 2020, and we received the appropriate extensions from MEMA and EEA to secure that deadline. On November 4th, we hosted a public listening session to present the plan to the public and receive comments. To date, I have not received any other additional comments from that listening session aside from the questions that we took during that session. This brings us to tonight's public meeting. Upon the end of our presentation tonight, we will solicit any comments you may have, and then we will request your consent to send this plan to MEMA and EEA for their comments. After we receive those agencies' comments, we will come back to you all on either December 1st or December 15th to request final approval and adoption of the MVP/HMP plans. After this plan is adopted, we will be eligible for MVP action grants from EEA and BRIC grants from FEMA. And now I will turn over the presentation to our consultant, Jim Reardon.
Hi, thank you very much, Nick. I very much appreciate the introduction you gave me earlier. My name is Jim Reardon from Weston and Sampson. I'm the project manager who was assisting the city with putting together this HMP MVP. An HMP MVP includes several key elements, including community resilience, awareness, priority actions, and implementation. And it provides cities and towns that put these plans together with some key benefits, including preparing for natural disasters, easing disaster recovery, improving community resilience, providing access to FEMA and EEA grants, such as the BRIC grant that Nick mentioned a moment ago, and decreasing flood insurance costs. So we'll now go over the hazards that were addressed as part of this plan, as well as climate change issues and how climate change can exacerbate some of those hazards. When we put together your plan, we looked at 7 types of hazards and, as I mentioned, climate change. One of the types of hazards, earthquakes, obviously is not impacted by climate change. It's a geologic or seismic type of event and really is not impacted by climate in any sort of significant way. However, flood hazards, winter storms, fire, extreme temperatures, and drought all are exacerbated by climate change, and climate change is a significant part of any MVP. I think probably most of you already know climate change is the result of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases certainly occur naturally. These include methane and carbon dioxide, but they are also a product of human activity. Greenhouse gases tend to form a blanket. They rise up into the atmosphere and form sort of a blanket over the top of the atmosphere that allows light energy from the sun to penetrate and warm the earth. Because these greenhouse gases also tend to insulate the earth by providing, sort of this extra blanket, if you will, they tend to increase as they gather, they tend to increase the temperature of the Earth's surface. Climate mitigation actions ensure that a community is better adapted to the potential hazards associated with climate change. And these sorts of climate mitigation actions are, of course, a key component of your community's resilience. When I first got into this business and started to look at greenhouse gases, it surprised me a little bit to learn just how much of them tend to come from residential activities. So full 86% of greenhouse gases that are from human sources typically come from residential activities. Certainly also commercial and industrial activities and municipal activities play a role as well, but largely they come from just plain, residential activities, heating homes, driving cars, etc. As I mentioned earlier, we're focusing on certain hazards in Attleboro. Listed on the left-hand side of this table are the types of hazards that we're addressing. There was sort of a more general list before. These are a bit more specific, including different types of storms, snowstorms, ice storms, nor'easters, thunderstorms, etc., and the frequency of their occurrence as well as their severity. So if you think about the second and third column as being an overall measure of the type of concern that a hazard might present, you might almost multiply the frequency times the severity to determine which of the hazards on the left-hand side are most significant for your community. Extreme temperatures are one area where we see climate change impacting and increasing the prevalence of the types of hazards that we're dealing with in this plan. Over the last 50 years or so, we've seen an average increase in annual air temperature of about 0.5 degree per decade. And as that pertains to wintertime, we've actually seen winter temperatures increase by about 1.3 degrees Fahrenheit per decade since the 1970s. So in some ways, it has a more significant impact on winter times than the year overall. Here you can see how this relates to the kinds of extreme temperatures that we might see in a given period of the year. So in 2005, days with temperatures that were above 90 degrees, that was around 6. Those were actually recorded. By mid-century, it's actually projected to increase by about a factor of 4 to 24, and by the end of the century to a factor of just under 6 to 36 days with temperatures above 90 degrees. So if you think of those mostly as happening in the summertime, which of course they would, it's almost a third of the summer where you'll have days that are above 90 degrees. So like essentially a whole month with those kind of temperatures. In the wintertime, we're seeing fewer days where the temperature falls below 32 degrees. And it's sort of typical for folks to think, well, you know, nice warm days in the wintertime, those are a good benefit of climate change, right? Aren't those wonderful? You know, it's not freezing cold out. Well, in a way, yes, those are nice, but they're also quite problematic for the ecology. So what this means is that plants and animals that would normally sort of go to sleep or hibernate in the wintertime because of the colder temperatures no longer do that. They get confused. They tend to be awake for longer periods of the year. It also means that plants and animals that didn't used to live in this area can now survive in the coming ecology, if you will. And these plants and animals tend to be some of the more aggressive ones. They're the ones that migrate in first and tend to be invasive. So they may outcompete plants and animals that were here, under sort of the previous conditions and outcompete them and cause problems for the ecology. So the ecology can change quite a bit with these sorts of things. This essentially has the effect of moving the Commonwealth of Massachusetts down to South Carolina. So that's what these changes in temperature and changes in climate sort of mean. Some examples of the types of things that we see as a result of rising temperature include increased summer demand on aging energy systems, such as our electric grid, heat-related stress for livestock and crops, increased drought and wildfires. We don't really get wildfires per se around Massachusetts. We'll talk about fires a little bit more in a couple of minutes. We more typically get brush fires. But as we start to see these sorts of conditions aggravated, we may actually find that we do start to get wildfires. Migrating plants and animal species, increase in harmful algal blooms, so the blue-green algae that you hear about, or cyanobacteria, golden algae, all of those tend to be more prevalent during warmer times of year. So as temperatures rise, so do they in terms of their prevalence and the likelihood that they'll bloom. Increased stress on critical infrastructure, increased allergies, in asthma rates, increased heat-related illness and mortality, and of course, increased vector-borne disease. So when we think about vector-borne disease, the main creatures that we think about are mosquitoes. Everybody loves mosquitoes, of course. Back in the decade of the 1980s, we only got to love mosquitoes about 96 days a year. That was the length of their growing season, if you will. Since then, with the increased temperature, we've seen that time period increase to about 119 days in 2006. And of course, this continues on the rise. So these numbers are actually higher now than they were in 2006. What does this mean? Well, mosquitoes are annoying, of course, but they also are carriers of disease. They carry vector-borne disease. They're considered to be vectors, if you will. And that includes, as I'm sure you all know, things like Triple E, West Nile virus, and of course, malaria. So these things will all become more prevalent as climate change becomes more significant. Changes in our precipitation. So both changes in the amount and changes in the kind of precipitation that we see, changes in intensity of individual storms, changes in the way hydrographs appear. So storms become more intense and more frequent, but they also become flashier. So there's more extreme events. So we've actually seen an increase of about 70% since the late 1950s in extreme events. And when we refer to extreme events, sometimes you hear a rain event may be reported out by its recurrence frequency. It's a 2-year event or 10-year event or a 100-year event. So what we're seeing is more and more of those. So really what's happening is what used to be a 2-year event might be turning into more like a 1-year event, or maybe it's happening every 6 months. So it's not unusual these days in the summertime that we see these sort of gully washer type events that are 2 or 3 or 4 inches of rain. Those statistically used to be considered 2, maybe 5-year type events. And this trend continues. So it's expected that by mid-century, we'll have about an 8% increase in those sort of extreme events, 2-year events and more, if you will. And by the end of the century, 13%. Of course, as time goes on, we learn more and more about climate change. And we've learned that the concerns associated with climate change, the climate change actually seems to be accelerating at a faster pace than we used to believe back at the beginning of the century and maybe even 10 years ago. So these percentages that we're showing on these screens, these were projected out, kind of in the mid-aughts, around 2005. These numbers are likely to increase. So we're probably going to see higher percentages of extreme events than are listed on this slide. What's the effect of all this? Well, we'll see decreased summer precipitation overall and increase in episodic droughts. Because of these gully washer events, you might expect to see that we would have less droughts, but the part of the impact of those kind of events is that they come down so fast that the soil doesn't have the opportunity to absorb the rain. And so it doesn't get into the groundwater. It doesn't feed our groundwater table. It doesn't recharge our aquifers. It also runs off very quickly. So it gets into the streams and rivers and runs off the landscape and ends up back in the ocean rather quickly. It used to feed base flow, used to feed aquifers and water tables and keep our rivers and streams running throughout the year. Rivers and streams tend to be an expression of groundwater. So if there's less groundwater, there's less rivers and streams.
Hey, Jim, I just want to interrupt you for 1 second and do a time check because what we laid out was probably 15 or 20 minutes of the impact of this mitigation plan directly to the city. While I'm interested in everywhere in Massachusetts, I want to know to Attleboro. And then we were going to give 10 or 15 minutes for questions from the counselors because we have a series of 11 public hearings tonight. So, and we wanted to jam this in tonight because there's pressure to get the approval from the council to the state. So if we could just narrow in, I don't know where you are in your, you're at slide 17, but where you are in your presentation, but if we could just get right to the meat and potatoes of the impact to Attleboro and what changes you're planning to propose, if any.
Sure, we can skip ahead to that. So I'm going to run through the slides really quickly and just identify what they're about. So, that I'm not leaving any gaps, but I'll move much more quickly. So, of course, flooding becomes an issue with greater precipitation. We've had some pretty significant events in the last few years. Winter storms have become more severe. Good example is the blizzard of 2013. Drought has become more significant. We see longer drought events and they happen more frequently. A good example is the 2016 to 2017 drought event. And we're expecting the droughts will actually increase. The droughts lasting 1 to 3 months will actually increase by about 75% by the end of the century. Heavy rain events tend to create riparian problems. So they tear up rivers and streams and they change the shape and the bed of those rivers and streams. This also causes ecological problems. Fires are becoming a more significant problem. So as I mentioned before, while we don't really have wildfires in the New England area at this time, we're seeing more and more brush fires. And those are getting larger, more significant brush fires, gradually moving towards what you might call wildfires. Severe storms such as, related to tropical depressions, such as hurricanes, superstorms, nor'easters, are all becoming more prevalent and causing more problems. Earthquakes, of course, are not climate change related, but earthquakes can be an issue for Massachusetts communities, even like they are in other parts of the country where they're more prevalent. For example, we had a very, what most folks would think of, I think, as being a small earthquake about a week and a half ago, about a 3.6 on the Richter scale. It didn't cause damage, fortunately, but a lot of people felt it with an epicenter in New Bedford and then stretching out towards Hartford, Connecticut. People actually felt the impact of that. So this shows extreme weather impacts. In the interest of time, I'll skip over these. As we're seeing more of these kind of hazard events, including wind and rain, with very significant precipitation, our infrastructure becomes at greater risk. And important part of that infrastructure for Attleboro are the dams and dikes that you have. These man-made structures which impound water bodies are aging, and they are always at risk when there are significant precipitation events. This table lists from the order of low to high classification, hazard classification, the structures that you have in Attleboro. So this page indicates the either unclassified dams, which are not rated because they're less significant, through low and significant. And then this page shows the 10 dams or 9 dams that you have in Attleboro, which are of more significant hazard potential all the way to high potential. If one of these was to fail because of a heavy rain event or something like that, of course, the downstream area would be at significant risk and could result in significant loss of life or property. So planning context in Attleboro. You're an area of about 18,000 acres, or roughly 28 square miles, 41% urbanized, 33% of that is residential. There are areas of industrial and commercial land use, of course. And all this needs to be considered as we're thinking about protection actions. When we're planning through the elements of an HMP MVP, we also consider institutional infrastructure such as your public safety departments and infrastructure such as wastewater, dams, roadways, and water supplies. We look at your demographic profile. In a lot of ways, Attleboro is very similar to the rest of Massachusetts. So you can see Attleboro listed in the middle column and then Massachusetts to the right. Attleboro has significant open space. About 15.3% of the land is existing open space. About 2.5% of that is recreational open space. As Nick mentioned, we worked with a core committee, in putting together initial actions, and we then reached out to the larger community and in January held what was referred to as a community resilience building workshop. This included about 25 or 30 people who met on a Saturday in January. We led them through a discussion of hazards and the sort of demographic profile, if you will, the planning context for the city of Attleboro, and through a workshop designed to help them identify actions to mitigate potential hazards. Between the core committee that met over the course of the project and the community resilience building workshop, we identified a wide range of actions. Some examples of the types of areas of actions are listed here: public education, communication systems, flood insurance program, policy related, etc. We assembled all these actions, there are about 45 of them, in a table, 8.1. This is part of the HMP MVP that was provided to you. And we listed them in terms of first off, naming the mitigation action, the hazard phase that you might adopt the action in, estimated cost, responsibility for who is going to adopt and plan for the action, with the agencies listed in bold as being the lead party on implementation and planning of the action, time frame, and then priority level. Some actions are higher priorities than others. And with that, I think we'd like to open it up to questions.
Muted. Sorry about that. Any questions for from the council for Nick or Mr. Riordan? Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jim, I was in a couple of slides back about proposed actions for the city of Attleboro. I was surprised to not see a review of zoning restrictions to plan now for the changes that we know are coming and to prevent possible property loss in the future because of improvements on land that never should have been improved based on what we know. Is that being done anywhere, Jim?
Yep, that is, and that's actually planned as part of your HMP MVP. The list of 3 actions that were shown in that table were just examples.
Okay,
so
thank you.
If you go to that table 8.1 at the end, there's a complete list, and that's definitely included.
I have the plan and I have read it. I missed that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Okay. Thank you both.
So President Cooper, at this time, I'd like to request from the Municipal Council a vote to give us consent to send this plan off to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, as well as the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency to receive comments from them. So just to clarify, this is not a vote to approve and adopt the plan. This would just be a vote to give us consent to send this plan to those agencies for their comment.
Yep, that's when the time is right, that vote will be taken.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you both. And anything else, Nick or Jim, you'd want to add?
Nope, I have nothing more to add. Jim, do you have anything to add?
No, I'd just like to thank you all for your thoughtful questions and listening to the presentation.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Jones, are you going to bring the planning board in as panelists? How is that going to work?
Yes, as soon as you call the public hearing, I'll bring them all in.
Okay, so before we do that, we're just going to do a quick thing for approval of the minutes. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of 5/26/2020.
Second.
All those in favor, any questions or comments? All those in favor, roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes,
11 yeas, no nays.
thank you. Motion passes. Ms. Ravad, would you kindly read the notice of the first public hearing this evening on the acceptance of Crown Street?
Okay. Joint public hearing pursuant to 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, as amended, to lay out Crown Street as a public way, length of approximately 160 feet, and accept said way and any related drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements, all as shown on a plan and profiled entitled Street Acceptance Plan for Crown Street dated February 2020, prepared by Samuel Hemingway, P.E. and Samuel A. White Jr., PLS.
Thank you. The planning board, does the planning board have a quorum? I just want to confirm that.
They do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Yes, Jack Jacoby.
Hi, Jack.
Hi. Jack Jacoby, 15 Prince Street, Chairman of the Municipal Building Commission. We gave an extensive presentation on this to the council a few months ago. Basically, we have a project in mind, which is to build a pumping station that will tie in the Pawtucket water system with the Attleboro water system. And it's sort of interesting after listening to this other presentation. One of the main purposes of this is to deal with drought, and another main purpose is to deal with a catastrophic failure of our main water system, where we could actually buy water from Pawtucket as needed. Jim, can you put the plan up? So 102 years ago, the city council started the process of accepting Crown Street as a public way. That was voted on by the council, and there was supposedly a plan that was to be found with the records, but there is no plan to be found with the records. And nothing was ever recorded and nothing was ever accepted. You can see the plan that we recently had prepared, and I do want to say that Gary Arasian really wanted to be here tonight, but there was a family health emergency, and he asked me to convey that to you. So what we would like to do is to ask the council to take two steps. One is to accept Crown Street as a public way, and then at the meeting after that, to discontinue it as a public way, and that will be the next hearing. Crown Street is not much of a street, but it's in a perfect place. for what we need. Jim, could you put up the sketch?
I have the acceptance and the discontinuance.
No, the sketch that I sent you of the pumping station.
You sent me something?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, give me a second.
So hopefully he'll come up with that in a moment.
Yep, just give me a second. You can just keep talking.
Okay, so we are, as I said, we're hopeful that after 102 years from 1918 to 2020, we can go ahead and actually finish accepting this as a public way. The concept then is that once it's accepted as a public way, we own it. Then when it's discontinued, it's no longer a public way, but we still own it. The ownership issue is something that we covered extensively a few months ago in a presentation to the council. This will allow us in January to put this out to bid, and there we are. So now you can see that you can see where Crown Street is. You can see that triangle. The orientation slightly different here from the plan, but you can still see. And so that pumping station, you can see the public, the Pawtucket Water Supply Board line, their 12-inch water main runs right through the station. And CDM Smith has designed a way to connect the Attleboro water into that pumping station. So this is the absolute perfect place to put this thing. And so that's what we're intending to do. If we can put this out to bid in January, we would start construction in the spring, and in something in the range of 18 to 24 months, we would actually have this operational and be able to deal with a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, or a drought, and have redundancy in our water supply. So that's the story on the acceptance and a preview of the discontinuance.
Any questions for Mr. Jacoby from the council at this time? Any from the planning board? Seeing none, Jack, thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Jones, did anybody else identify on the comments that they were interested in the Crown Street discussion?
None for Crown Street.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Seeing none, Mr. Kobus, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Does the planning board see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No, we don't.
Thank you. That public hearing is closed. Moving on to the next public hearing with a similar topic, Crown Street, but the discontinuance. Ms. Ravad, would you kindly read the notice of that public hearing?
Public hearing pursuant to 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro as amended to discontinue Crown Street as a public way, length of approximately 160 feet, and approve said discontinuance as shown on the street discontinuance plan available for viewing at the planning department at City Hall.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Jack Jacoby again.
Back at it.
Still live at 15 Prince Street, and I'm still chair of the Municipal Building Commission. So we would hopeful that perhaps at your December 1st meeting, you could accept it, and then at your December 15th meeting, you could discontinue it. That would give us the ability to build what we just showed you on top of what used to be then a street. I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Jack. Is there any questions from the council or the planning board at this time? Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Mr. Kobus, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Mr. Denisi, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No, we don't.
Thank you. This public hearing is closed. Thank you all for joining this evening. And Mr. Jacoby, thank you very much.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Right.
We'll just give the rest of the planning board members a minute. All right. Moving right along. Ms. Ravad, would you kindly read the notice of the the first continued public hearing for this evening?
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance Section 7-12 Styrofoam Food Container Waste Reduction.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the styrofoam food container waste reduction?
President Cooper, we have 4 people who would like to speak or who have noted, has designated. I don't think there's any specific, there's some who want to talk about NIPS, some that talk about styrofoam. I think it's all together.
Okay. So why don't we wait till we get to the NIPS? It looks to me like most of them they can add their comments on the other as they wish, but we did do them all together when we did this the first time. But if we wanted to keep certain ones open for one reason or another, tonight we decided that we would do them all individually. So, which is the NIPS are coming up. So is there anyone here to speak in favor of the styrofoam food container waste reduction? Anyone to speak in opposition?
So I'm going to, on the floor, I'm going to bring in Nancy Downs of 2 Meadowview Brook Road of Millis, Massachusetts.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you. I was planning on speaking to 7 of the 9 items of the continued public hearings, about 3 to 4 minutes total. Is that possible?
Sure.
And would it be better to wait till the end or now?
Are you speaking in favor of the ban? Sounds like
in favor of those 7 items that I'm speaking to.
Okay.
What's the best way? I don't wish to take up a lot of time.
Yeah, no, I think Nancy, you could do it now. We did let people sort of overlap on the previous discussion. So
okay.
I'm fine with it. If you want to get it out of the way now, that's perfectly fine with me. Any members of the council have a feeling different than that? Now's the time to speak about it. Okay, Nancy, you're up.
Thank you. And I will not be addressing the mercury waste or the NEO, I can't even say that word, but all the other items. Is that all right?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And video or no video, just my voice?
It's up to you.
I'm happy to do video if you wish.
Sure, you can do that.
We don't typically, I mean, are there exhibits that you want to show?
No, so
Okay.
that's fine. Okay, I'll go ahead. Thank you so much, council members, committee members. My name's Nancy Downs. I am full-time campaign organizer for Oceana in New England. The group was founded in 2001. We're the world's largest international advocacy organization. We're dedicated to ocean conservation. I'm here to speak in support of the town of Attleboro's ordinances focused on reducing plastic pollution waste in your community. As you know, it's a global crisis. Plastic's everywhere. It's found on the sea surface, remote coastlines, Arctic sea ice, the deepest point of the ocean. It's consumed by and entangling seabirds and marine mammals, and it's making our way into what we consume. Last summer, as reported in US Today, a study suggests the average American consumes a credit card worth of plastic every week. Even zooplankton, the base of our food chain, is eating plastic, and that and the toxins attached to it accumulates into larger predators and makes its way onto our dinner plates. It's also made from petroleum-based chemicals and toxic additives. Plastic never biodegrades. It breaks down from exposure and over time into smaller and smaller pieces of plastic that ends up in your landfills, or so lightweight it's blown into our waterways and oceans. It's intrinsically connected to climate change at every step of its life. The greenhouse gases that escape when fossil fuels are extracted and refined, which is a very energy intensive process. And then more greenhouse gases are emitted during the transportation of these items. And lastly, during incineration or in the landfills. And production is not slowing down. We are expected, the world right now is producing 400 million metric tons of plastic, and it's projected to quadruple by 2050. So here's where it gets to Attleboro. The industry would like you to believe that if everyone recycles, that would solve the problem, but really it's about 8 to 9% of our plastic waste is actually recycled. Another 12% is incinerated, or it's downcycled or exported. And although it appears cheaper for companies to produce and for local businesses to use, it comes with hidden costs and to the environment and to the consumers. So in other words, the community of Attleboro ultimately pays the price, and that comes in the form of paying for your waste management, your street sweeping, your backed up storm drains during all those heavy storms that you just heard about in your disaster plan with the increased storms of climate change. The plastic trash that you're allowing to be distributed and sold in your community is going to be discarded in your community, and you will be left with the price tag of cleaning it up. So while reversing the crisis, I'm almost done, really should fall on producers, governments like the town of Attleboro really does play a critical role in moving this world to a no waste system. Right now, Congress is considering groundbreaking legislation on this very issue. It's called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which would reduce the most commonly found single-use plastic items. It standardizes labeling and recycling and shifts the responsibility to producers. 8 out of the 9 members of Congress here in Massachusetts have already co-sponsored that bill, so it shows us strong support to reduce plastic pollution right here in our state and nationally. So by voting to support these plastic reduction ordinances, your city will be a leader and will send a strong message to state and federal policymakers to move in the right direction towards solving this global plastic pollution crisis. If your town needs any additional information on other cities in the state that have successfully banned these items, I'm happy to share that information. Thank you for considering to support these items.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Downs at this time? Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, President Cooper. Nancy, thank you very much for coming and sharing your expertise and your passion.
Thank you.
I have a question. One of the things that we hear is that, this is a battle that should be fought at a higher level, by the state or federal government, et cetera, et cetera. What difference will it make if a little city like Attleboro bans plastics? Can you tell us why you think it's important that, in fact, cities like Attleboro act now?
Well, individually for your own town, just the cost to your own community. I think a green, clean, sustainable city is the way to go, just for the health of your own community. I agree, I think completely that as cities band together, you're showing that this is doable, this is possible. It's also complicated, this patchwork of ordinances city by city. If you're a grocery store, can you imagine you have to deal with 130 different cities in the state of Massachusetts that have passed different bag bans? So one city might have a 10-cent fee, one might ban them outright. It creates a complex patchwork for businesses to figure out how to manage these different ordinances. So having a standardized regulations, I think, is way better. And at this point, I personally, what we see in the ocean as far as animal entanglement and pollution and toxicity, we really are at a tipping point. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. Does that help?
It does. It does. I think it matters that we start on the ground level, that we don't wait to be saved by the federal or state government or anybody else, that we start saving ourselves.
And I think the current administration, it was less open to these types of decisions, but I think with the new administration, we might see some change in improving environmental policies. So I look forward to that happening. There's 90 co-sponsors on that federal legislation, but again, every single city that moves the needle forward is going to show state and federal legislation that this is doable. And there's so many cities that have passed comprehensive legislation like that, not in Massachusetts. In California, I could definitely share with the mayor other cities that have comprehensive ordinances such as this. And it really is great and amazing to see Attleboro kind of taking the lead to consider this. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, President Cooper.
Thank you. Any additional, Councilor Waterman?
Yes, thank you, Nancy, for coming.
Thank you.
I had one additional question. Could you focus for a minute on the effects of styrofoam and why we should ban styrofoam?
Well, petrochemicals are used in the production of plastic. So all plastic items start with petrochemicals, and then there's toxic additives that vary depending on what type of plastic you want. Styrofoam is very lightweight, so it breaks down very easily, but a lot of people misunderstand the breaking down. It doesn't break down into organic materials. It breaks down into smaller and smaller bits of plastic, but it never actually degrades down to organic. Also, when you microwave plastic or styrofoam, it releases some of the toxins that are within the petrochemicals, and that also is a threat to your health. I apologize, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm an ocean environmentalist and an advocate for ocean health. But there are plenty of studies available that show the leaching of the chemicals within these plastics absolutely impact human health.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments for Ms. Downs? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, we have Peter Hargraves of 31 Southview Way in East Falmouth, Massachusetts. And I'm going to bring him in now.
I had to unmute. Okay, now can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Very good. I'll avoid, I have nothing to add by the video. But my comment in general is in support of this, and I want to congratulate you on your courageous effort to tackle all of these things in a lump sum. We've done it piecemeal here on the Cape and in Falmouth in particular. I called in after talking with Kathleen DeSimone about the NIPS ban, because we recently passed that in Falmouth, and I've worked with people in Mashpee who also passed it as a regulation by their liquor regulatory board just a couple weeks ago. But in particular, all of these are kind of essential in controlling what goes into the oceans and the issues that Nancy was talking about. And I'd like to just build on her comments on two areas to help you think about this. First of all, there was a discussion about doing this on the state level. We worked with Randy Hunt, and I talked with legislators in Maine as they were talking about putting deposits on NIPS. And you all know that a couple of years ago, there was a ballot question in Massachusetts about putting a deposit on water bottles. Well, all of this at that level draws the money from the commercial interests, and it's those commercial interests that put the money into supporting the business as it is. And so I think that doing it on a local level, where Maura Healey, frankly, has proved that there's US Supreme Court law that allows Concord to regulate their environment and ban water bottles, working from the grassroots level is going to be much more effective. And I would encourage you to push hard on that. There are 190 towns and cities in Massachusetts that have banned plastic bags. and 351 communities in Massachusetts. But the legislature says, well, maybe when we get a sense that there's a big movement to ban plastic bags, we'll do it on a state level. So that says it all about the state level discussion. And as you know, after 2 legislative sessions, there was no deposit put on nip bottles. And the other thing about, what's the issue with styrofoam? There was a question there. Well, for the last 30 years, we've known that styrofoam has much higher levels of monomer than polyvinyl chloride. You'll all remember, some of you may be as old as I am, and remember that back in the 70s, when PVC was first introduced, it was the vinyl chloride monomer and the carcinogenicity of that caused it to be banned, and they pulled it back off of shelves from soft drink bottles and oil bottles. And actually, the styrene monomer is considered a potential carcinogen. But I think a better way to think about it is this. There are single-use convenience packages that all these materials are used in, and it's an industry to produce these packages. It takes petrochemicals to manufacture the raw materials to produce these packages, and then these need to be disposed of, and a lot of them are ending up in the oceans, landfills, incinerators, in our groundwater. They end up there as microplastics because a lot of them are not able to be decomposed to their basic element. They just don't, it doesn't work that way. They're very stable materials. And so to think about it as how can we protect our environment by regulating single-use convenience packaging and getting back to basics more is a saner way to approach these things because each one of them has their own issues. So to the point of why I came on here, they're more I do support everything you're doing, and I came to learn something about how to bundle this for Falmouth. And I want to share some things specifically when we get to the NIPS item. But there are 2 things that I want to bring to your attention administratively because they're things that we ran into in doing our work. We have an expanded polystyrene ban in Falmouth, and it went into effect, and the compliance has been good through the health department. I would encourage you to talk again. I'm sure you already have with your counsel with an S, your legal counsel, about using styrofoam, capital S, which is a trademark for expanded polystyrene, and to generalize it more in the interest of achieving the protection that you want. And the other thing that I wanted to comment on, again, it's administrative, in 713 on the plastic containers and cups, there are cup covers that are styrene materials, and I don't see these that would be captured by any of your ordinances. And we got expanded polystyrene cups to be banned, but now they still come with those styrene covers. So, and straws, and I love your idea about including straws, but I'll say more about NIPS when we get there. That's a focus area, but I just wanted to contribute those, and I'm sorry about the extra time stimulated by the good ideas that Nancy brought to the table.
Let me unmute first. Any questions for Mr. Hargraves at this time? Sir, do you intend to come back? You should give all your testimony now.
I think I would rather participate. I see there are people in the chat who are against it, and
we're not having a debate tonight, sir. So if you have factual testimony that you would like the council to consider as we go forward with the deliberation and send this to committee, now's the time to present that information to the council. We're not having a debate tonight and going back and forth.
I understand, and I appreciate that. And so I'll take you up on your offer if you're not tired of listening to me yet. So just by way of credentialing my comments, we, a year and a half ago, formed a committee, the Falmouth Litter Reduction Team, an ad hoc committee. We've engaged with our select board and had public forums, and through the process, we surveyed and classified and counted the litter on about 8 miles of our road. And we determined that 32% of the litter, the most common item, on our roadsides is nips, 50 and 100 milliliter sizes. And I would encourage you to add the 100 milliliter size to your list. You have 50 in there. I would encourage you to add 100. We looked at various ways to manage this with education and with a deposit. And even we talked with Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, which is a state branch of Keep America Beautiful. And as Nancy has said, this is just, I'm sorry for the language here, a front organization for the industry to calm down consumers who are concerned about the environment. And there was nothing there because there's a legal aspect of DUI and open container laws in driving around with a nip. But they were, in our survey, the last piece of kind of background, they were found in 8 miles of road, we found 795 nips. There were 94 nips per mile, and they're everywhere at all levels, primary, secondary, tertiary, and main roads. It clearly indicates people who do this are a small fraction of the population, but they do it habitually and regularly everywhere. And there are safety issues around that. So we were inspired by Chelsea's success. I understand that Ray Avellanado may have been talking to you about the experience in Chelsea. I've talked to Ray, he's a wonderful resource on this. And the bottom line there is they put a ban in place in July of 2018, and the streets are cleaner and safer, he says. And the thing that's really affects town budgets and town personnel, 75% of their police, fire, and ambulance alcohol-related calls have been reduced by having this ban in place. The reason we were reluctant to approach it is the legal aspect, but the ABCC ruled that Chelsea has a right to regulate what's sold in their town. And this is getting back to Maura Healey's US Supreme Court ruling that allows Concord to have a water bottle ban. So it's kind of a limp argument for the liquor industry to say they're going to take us to court on this. So we passed this in September. It'll be effective in October because our liquor license renewal process begins in October. And so then this will be a qualifier in the consideration of renewing liquor licenses here in Falmouth. And we talked with John Cotton, who's the first selectman in Mashpee, and they passed it in a different format. We passed ours at town meeting with a vote. And so it's a bylaw once more. Healy returns it to us, which we expect momentarily. They passed theirs as a regulation by their liquor board, and they had their reasons for doing that, but it's equally effective both ways. So the thing that I wanted to focus on, because I've heard objections all the way through our process here from liquor stores, and primarily bodegas, convenience stores that have liquor licenses. These are the outlets that do a large amount of nip business. A true liquor store that sells branded liquors in all sizes really doesn't have any interest in a nip customer. In my survey, they put the nips behind the counter because they're really a theft inducement. They are lost to shoplifting and such. But one thing the liquor stores say is they're going to go out of business. They're going to lose a lot of money. And so I called every liquor store that would talk to me in Chelsea, and everyone that would talk to me. And I talked to Ray, and I also talked to their town council. And there are 3 bullet points from those discussions. No liquor store or licensed convenience store has closed in Chelsea since they started this ban. This is pre-COVID. I don't know what COVID-19 has done to their businesses in general. They have had no layoffs or job loss due to the ban. And the customer response to this has just been to buy the larger size. There are 8 sizes approved by the Code of Federal Regulations, and these are 2 of them, 50 and 100 mils. People buy the 200 mil size. Now, on the idea that they're going to go bankrupt or lose a lot of money from their business loss, This is primarily related to associated purchases, cigarettes, lottery tickets, and snacks that go along with a NIP purchase. Because from public I tried to work with the PSA, the Package Store Association, which all the liquor stores, or many of them, belong to. They didn't return my phone calls, and they didn't have any public data. But there are 25 million NIPs per year sold in Massachusetts, and 6.5 million people in Massachusetts, which is, on all things being equal basis, 4 NIPs per person. Now in Falmouth, our seasonally adjusted population, when you adjust for the summer highs and the off-season lows, is 42,500, something like the Attleboro population. And so therefore our fair share of NIPs is 168,000 NIPs a year to 12 licensees in Falmouth. That's $14,000 a year that they get from gross revenue. And the cost of NIPs are an inducement to come into the store. It's not a high profit item. The liquor store and the industry produce no accounting information to refute these claims that I got from public information.
Peter, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you for a minute.
Yep.
I'm going to stop you and say, I want to know specifically your concerns with the Attleboro ordinance, right?
My concern is
giving a lot of leeway to people tonight, and I want to make sure that we're focusing on what's going on in Attleboro, why the pluses or minuses perhaps of doing one thing over the other.
Okay, so for us, it was about litter reduction. There are many other facets to this. I don't know what Attleboro's cultural issues are. Whether in Chelsea, Ray said, gee, we had public drunkenness. We had a lot of issues downtown. We have those on a similar scale in Falmouth. And so we expect to deal with that. We expect to deal with litter. I told you about the roadside litter. Again, I'm in support of doing this because this is, like Nancy said, an insult to the environment through the use of a single-use disposable package. And so the larger packages are just more efficient. I'm not a prohibitionist. So I would say I'm here as a resource. Take what applies to Attleboro from your knowledge of your community. My daughter owns a house in Attleboro, so I'm kind of selfishly wanting her to live in a better environment. And so I think it's a good idea from many different aspects, but I don't live in your community, and so I don't know your community. But I'm sure all you guys sitting around the table and women sitting around the table can process this in your heads and say, well, this is relevant or maybe not to Attleboro.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hargreaves at this time? Oh, Council Cobus, you're confusing me. You're saying yes.
No questions for me. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Mr. Hargreaves, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, the next person to speak on the styrofoam issue is Ben Hellerstein of 83 Brown Street in Brookline, Massachusetts.
Great. Thank you so much to the members of the council for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Ben Hellerstein, and I'm the State Director for Environment Massachusetts, the statewide environmental advocacy organization. We work to protect clean air, clean water, and open space together with our tens of thousands of citizen members and supporters across the Commonwealth. I'm speaking today in support of the Environmental Protection and Prevention Ordinance, and in particular, the provisions to phase out single-use plastic products, including polystyrene containers, as well as the provisions related to plastic containers and straws. And I just wanted to commend the mayor for his leadership in introducing this ordinance, and the council for your careful consideration of this policy. As you've heard from other speakers, single-use plastic products are a major source of pollution in our rivers, streams, and oceans. Scientists have found plastic fragments in hundreds of species. And just one anecdote I want to share is that in November of 2018, scientists and veterinarians at the New England Aquarium determined that a 420-pound leatherback sea turtle died in part from swallowing a piece of plastic, in addition to extensive injuries from an entanglement with fishing rope. And the aquarium's ecologist regularly encounters plastic in important feeding areas for leatherback sea turtles. So in part for this reason, more than 130 municipalities in Massachusetts, including Attleboro, of course, have taken action to restrict the use of plastic bags. And additionally, 47 cities and towns have passed policies to restrict polystyrene, commonly known as styrofoam. As a citizen-based organization, Environment Massachusetts spends a lot of time talking to ordinary people across the Commonwealth. Each year, our staff knock on tens of thousands of doors to educate residents about environmental threats and enlist their support in advocating for solutions. In 2018, we launched a door-to-door campaign to raise awareness of the harmful effects of plastic waste in our environment. This campaign focused primarily on polystyrene, including foam coffee cups and takeout containers, but we also talked about other single-use products as well, like straws. And in total, we spoke with more than 54,000 people in neighborhoods across Massachusetts and collected 17,000 signatures on a petition urging state officials to reduce plastic pollution. Unfortunately, our state leaders have not yet adopted the laws and regulations that are required to deal with this problem of single-use plastic waste. And so really, it is up to local officials, including the members of this council, to lead the way forward towards a healthier and cleaner environment. And just before I wrap up, I'd like to just share two quick takeaways from our work to engage the public on this issue. First, comes as no surprise, we know that people in Massachusetts love their waterways. Our rivers, our streams, our coastal waters, these are the places where we swim, fish, paddle, or just spend time with our families. These waterways are also home to many species of endangered and threatened wildlife. And by protecting these bodies of water from plastic pollution, we are protecting some of the best parts of living in Massachusetts. Secondly, people are increasingly unwilling to tolerate pollution in our waterways. There may have been a time when pollution was seen as the price we paid for progress, but that is no more. Alternatives exist to these products that are polluting our waterways. And to put it simply, we know how to live our lives without polluting the rivers and streams we love. It's our responsibility to move as quickly as possible towards a world where all of our waterways are clean. So for all of those reasons, I encourage you to advance this important ordinance to reduce plastic waste, including polystyrene containers, plastic containers, and straws. And I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to offer our remarks.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Councilor DeSimone.
Yeah, thank you, President Cooper. Ben, thank you very much for coming and sharing your expertise and your passion for the issue. There's been some discussion about the proposed NIP deposit bill at the State House. Are you aware of that legislation? And what are your thoughts on whether or not that will, do you have any thoughts or understanding or knowledge about whether or not that will be likely to pass at any point in the near future based on the fact that it's been pending apparently for a few years?
Yeah, we support it, and we support many different pieces of legislation related to deposits for container recycling. So, of course, I'm sure everyone on this council is familiar with the bottle bill, which has been in many ways our most successful recycling legislation, and the legislation that the councilor mentioned would essentially extend a similar system to the NIP bottles as well. It doesn't seem like any of that legislation is likely to advance this year, in part due to the COVID pandemic just taking up a lot of the bandwidth on Beacon Hill. Certainly we're hopeful that we'll see more progress on the state level in 2021, although it's really hard to know for sure. And so, for that reason, I do think it's just really crucial for officials in communities like Attleboro to continue making progress. I mean, it is such an urgent issue. We really don't have time to waste. And in the places where we have seen progress on the state level, usually it's come because so many communities are already taking action on their own.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, President Cooper.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else to speak in favor?
President Cooper, all other people are to speak about NIPS.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on, anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Councilor Holmes, who's second in the committee? Councilor DeSimone, do you see any reason to keep that public hearing open?
No, President Cooper.
Thank you. That public hearing is closed. Ms. Ravad, would you kindly read the notice of the next public hearing? Continued public hearing, I'm sorry.
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 7-13, plastic food waste reduction.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor that hasn't already addressed the council?
President Cooper, there are none that have expressed.
Great. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Councilor DeSimone, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No, President Cooper.
Thank you. That public hearing is closed. Ms. Ravad, would you kindly read the notice of the next public hearing?
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 7-18, plastic shot bottles waste reduction.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, Jesse Tessier of 16 Edgemore Road of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, would like to address the council.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, council. Thank you for having me. I'm here on behalf, excuse me, of Attleboro-based group Friends of the 10 Mile River in Buckland Brook. I'm their new acting vice president. And just to kind of further the comments we've already had on the matter, specifically pertaining to nip bottles and also, I guess, by extension, the styrofoam and the food waste. As an organization that does a lot of river cleaning, and we've done cemeteries and parks as well, but we mostly focus on the watershed area. These are all items that line our trash bags every time we have a cleanup. And I think that at this point, the amount of litter we're still filling trash bags with on a weekend basis kind of demonstrates that personal accountability is out the window at this point, and it's time for regulation to do the job.
Okay, any additional questions for Mr. Tessier at this time? Jesse, thank you.
Thank you.
President Cooper, we have a couple of against.
Oh, you assholes. No, I think they muted me. Well, there's an
Mr. Tessier, you're not muted. Well, your comments were heard by all. Anyone here to speak in opposition?
President Cooper, the first person to speak against is George Reyes of 18 Settlers Hill Road in Attleboro, Massachusetts. And I'm going to have to promote him to a panelist.
Okay. Can you hear us okay? I see him, but I don't hear anything, Jim.
I have promoted him, but it does not seem like his microphone is working through the software. So if Mr. George Reyes would like to disconnect and reconnect, we can bring you in. The next person to speak against is Sean McNamara of 26 Peregrine Circle.
Council, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. just to give you a little background, I've worked in the adult beverage industry since 1996. For 15 years of that, I called on package stores in Attleboro, Foxborough, Mansfield area. So I have a little bit of background. I am strongly against this ban, mainly for economic reasons. The data on nip sales in Attleboro is as follows. We sell 12,000 cases of nips. It would be $1.2 million worth of revenue loss to our small businesses. To refute what was stated before, most small stores rely on nips for profit. Just to give you some quick math, a nip is a high profit item. On average, the nips that sell for 99 cents, they cost 67 cents. So you're talking almost a 50% margin on those. So it is a high profit item that most of these stores, for their revenue stream, nips account for somewhere between 15 to 20% of their total profit. So if we ban nips, you're effectively putting a stranglehold in a pandemic on a small business in Attleboro. That's the first thing I wanted to address. The second thing is, in communities where they have done these bans, it forces people up to a larger size. 90% of 200 milliliters and 375s are glass. So those same people that throw the nips out the window or discard them, now we're dealing with broken glass on the roads. So that's another hurdle we have to overcome. I think personally, I'm not against the litter. I think we definitely have to handle the litter problem. I'm proud of our small businesses in Attleboro who've stepped up and have started to address the situation. I think we need to continue to let them do that and also work with our state to work on the NIP bill. I know we have local legislators that are working for it. Let's give them a chance to get this going because that's the way for it to work. Right now, redemption on cans and bottles is at 64%. So if we can get a redemption on nips, I'm confident that, even if we get half the nips off the roads, that's better than what we have right now. And then the final thing I just want to touch base on, as far as the environmental aspect of it, Bacardi USA, which is one of the largest liquor companies in the world, they have already pushed to go green and have a fully biodegradable plastic bottle that will biodegrade in 18 months, and they will have that in place by 2022. 5 out of the 7 largest liquor companies in the world have also committed to doing that as well. So in my opinion, I think we're headed in the right direction. I don't think we can attack our small businesses on this issue. Let's handle the litter problem and not hurt our small businesses while we're doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McNamara? Great. Council Waterman.
Yes. Hi, Sean. How are you?
Good. And I apologize for calling you at home. I thought that was your cell number when I called.
It's okay. Can you elaborate a little bit more on not just the litter problem, but how you perceive the liquor interests working with groups in the city to tackle the litter problem?
Well, I don't want to speak directly for them, but I have been talking to various store owners, and I know that they have gotten together. They've spoken with the mayor and other people on the council, and they are on board with this. They understand it's a problem, and they get it, and they're open to ideas to help us tackle the real problem, which is litter. It's the litter is the issue, and the small businesses are ready to step up and work with the city to handle the problem. I haven't been directly in the meeting, so I don't want to speak for them, but I know that they have made strides working with the mayor and the council to address the problem.
Okay.
Thank you, Council Waterman. Did you have another question, Ty, before?
No, I'm all set.
Thank you. So, Mr. McNamara, I gotta tell you, since you brought it up, the liquor stores, I found it interesting that I got several calls over the weekend regarding a posting with my phone number on it at a local liquor store saying, call city council president with your concerns. So I decided to go to that said liquor store, who I won't name here. So I went there and I told them, why do you have my name there? And the guy behind the counter proceeded to tell me, well, I didn't put it there. I said, well, thank you for your help, sir. Then I proceeded to go to, as I was walking out the door, right by the cash register, there's a big sign in bright yellow paint with a black marker. don't throw your nip bottles in our parking lot. You're not helping our cause. So it's a problem that they can't even help themselves, quite frankly. So while I appreciate that, I think that you're right. We do have a littering problem, but the ban on nips and posting my phone number did no help to the cause around not banning nips, because the calls I got were actually in favor of a nip ban. So be careful what you wish for when you post something and put the council president's name in your store, because this council president is going to go down there. I know it wasn't you, but you brought it up. I don't know if any of them are on the line. I'm sure plenty of them are listening tonight. And so the one that knows it does. I don't have a problem with saying call your city councilor, but I do have a problem saying call the council president. I simply run the meeting and I'm one vote. There's 10 other people here that are part of this issue. So I just wanted to say that since you brought it up, the liquor store and litter. My comments aren't directed necessarily at you, but I wanted to share with the council and the public what I had heard as a result of that posting at and my observations in the liquor store. And I can tell you, I don't go to liquor stores much, but I went to that one that day, last weekend.
And I would just like to respond. That's an unfortunate situation, and I don't condone that at all. That's not the way to handle anything. I would just say that that's one bad apple. I wouldn't paint everybody with that brush, and I would just be.
They own a few. Let me say this, sir. They own a few, and I'm not gonna debate.
Well, but again, that's even if they own a few, that's one owner out of several in Attleboro, and I would say the majority are working with the council and the city to remedy the problem. And that is definitely not the right way to do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any additional questions for Mr. McNamara? Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
President Cooper, to speak against, we have a Sean Martin of 42 Michaela Ann Avenue of Rehoboth, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Great. So my name is Sean Martin. I am the owner of Briggs Corner Store in Attleboro, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of all the liquor store owners and our customers. I would first like to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to present our interests and our concerns. From the outside, we as business owners are viewed as only caring about our bottom line, which we obviously do, or else we wouldn't be in this community for all these years. That being said, because we have been here for so long, we are intertwined extensively with our neighborhoods. We are heavily involved in supporting schools, athletics, police, fire, environment, and our own customers and needs. We are able to do this because of all the support we get from our customers, and we happily accept that social responsibility and give back. We are one of the top communities in the state when it comes to keeping alcohol out of minors' possessions, and do our due diligence with the help of our police department when it comes to dealing with someone that might be under the influence and shouldn't be on the road. We are not just concerned with what happens within our four walls, and we show this each and every day. The litter issue is a significant issue that needs to be addressed, and we are in complete agreement that some changes have to occur. Lori Drucker and her team's efforts from Keep Attleboro Beautiful are amazing, but they are not enough, nor should all the responsibility fall on their shoulders. Our children deserve better than what we are leaving them. In particular, it's the 2 to 4% who do most of the littering that are making us all pay. I know that the world has so many immediate life-threatening issues between the virus and social unrest that tracking down those people that are littering isn't and can't be a top priority for our frontline people. We have to do more, but I don't believe that it starts or ends with banning any legal products, especially on a town-by-town basis. It is not only people that drink alcohol that litter. When we were cleaning up this past Saturday with Lori and her team, we found a mattress, couch, vacuum cleaner, multiple fast food containers, water bottles, plastic bags, lottery tickets, as well as the 50 ml containers, all within a 100-foot radius. Where do we decide to draw the line at which containers to ban? Also, if it is being sold within a mile in another town, then the litter is going to continue in Attleboro, and all we have done is hurt the local businesses that are part of this community. This ban will result in lost business for us in the millions, because those people don't only buy the 50 milliliters when they come into our stores. They will add on lottery tickets or food or other alcohol, which will now be forfeited to the surrounding towns. That income loss will result in a reduction in payroll for sure. With the current economic picture, I don't believe that anyone wants to see unnecessary job losses. There is also the real concern of drinking and driving, which, as I stated before, we are serious about and don't take lightly. Once again, this will be a very small percentage, and they are going to do this with a 50 mil, 100 mil, or 200 mil, and so on. There are many customers that know the 50 milliliter helps them limit themselves to drinking smaller amounts. We all are helped somewhere in our life with portion sizes. For some, it's desserts. We have all said or heard it said that if I don't have it in the house, then I won't eat it. Well, to many, this is the same thing. Life is very difficult right now, and everyone is dealing with it in their own way. I would hate to make someone be drinking more than they know that they can handle to create more issues during everything that is going on to us right now. In conclusion, the liquor stores have gotten together to come up with an in-store program to collect the nips and donate money back into the community for education purposes so that we don't continue to perpetuate this behavior. This program that is outlined for all of you is based on a program that happened in Gardner, Mass, where it brought in the 50 milliliter containers directly back to the liquor stores, who then properly dispose of them. We believe that this effort, along with the education piece, is a good start to cleaning up our neighborhoods. I would also like to propose that I personally would be happy to work with any one of the council members or mayor or anyone else outside in conjunction with Keep Attleboro Beautiful to help continue this cleanup. Thank you all for the time and consideration on this very important issue. If anyone has any questions, I'm ready.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Martin at this time? Councilor Dolan. You're muted.
I know, I had to use a different computer. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So, Mr. Martin, can you elaborate on what you said about collecting the nips and what other stores is this in conjunction with? Like,
So this is the 8 stores that have, you know, the liquor licenses that sell the nips. We've all gotten together, and actually, if Joshua is on, he'd be better to speak to this because he was really the main part of this idea. Are you there, Josh?
yeah, he's probably not. He probably
Okay.
isn't.
That's
but
fine.
I'm
If
sure
not,
if he can
if
hear
not,
you.
I can answer. It's not. So we're all going to set up. It's going to be like a 5-gallon bucket in the stores. There'll be signage throughout. And when they bring the nips back, every time we fill a bucket, we donate $50 to keep Attleboro Beautiful. And that's every store, every time. So we're getting more nips off the street continuously. Money is going back into the people who get out there and clean up. And then plus we're part of their cleanup crew. So that's
Okay.
what that program is. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any Councilor DeSimone?
Thank you, President Cooper. Hello again, Sean.
Hi, Kathleen.
How are you? So listen, as you know, I appreciate you're a local business owner. You have employees who probably live and work here, and I get that. And you have kids, as do I. But here's my concerns with your proposal. I just don't see, Sean, how it's going to in any way affect the people who drink and drive. Are they going to come back and recycle the bottles? That won't solve that problem. I don't think it's going to disincline people to toss them out the window for fear of having them discovered or whatever. And this is not a statement of judgment at all. I just don't understand who's going to be inclined to recycle them. And at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the production and decomposition of plastics in our environment. So although I appreciate your concerns, and I too was out there on Saturday and I picked up a lot of junk along with nips and alcohol bottles. There's certainly other stuff, and we have a litter problem in this world, which is unfortunate. But I respect your proposals. I would suggest it's too little too late. And I hope that the Bacardi biodegradable bottle is as good as it seems, but I think we need to act now and no longer wait on this issue. But I do appreciate your comments and concerns.
Well,
Thank you,
I
President
appreciate that. I will say this, that as the industry, as for me as a store owner, this has been brought to my attention 4 weeks ago. This isn't something that I've been spoken to or that people have come up to us from any area that this was even going to happen. When I heard this was going to happen, I didn't even know it was on the ballot. So as soon as we heard about it, right away, we got together and started to do stuff. And, this is the first stage. I will say that anytime you educate, and whether it's education within the stores with signing or education with people talking to one another, you're only going to move it forward. And when you now start to sit there and people who come to your store who aren't the ones that litter, are we ever going to fix the ones that litter? Probably not. But the ones that don't now have an additional incentive to saying, you know what, I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to bring it back to the store. And, someone else is going to get some money to help continue to clean up because maybe I'm sick of doing all this picking up. And we talked about that, Kathleen, how, the people who are picking up aren't the ones who are doing it. And I just think if we get more of them, then now we can start to move forward. Because in an ideal world, the classroom is wonderful, but then there's the realities of life. And you're going to have the bad apples that do what they're going to do, and you're not going to change them. So how can we get more of the good apples together to say, here we go?
Thank you, Councilor Waterman.
Just a quick question, and thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Did you consider a deposit of 3 to 5 cents, perhaps, just to throw that out when somebody brings back nips?
Well, I don't want to make a law that's something that's not legal for me to do. In essence, are we doing that? We're just donating it. Instead of giving it back to people, we're giving it as a donation into Keep America Beautiful. It probably comes out to 3 to 5 cents per nip when you fill up a 5-gallon container when you make that $50. So I'd be hesitant to decide that we're gonna now put something on a container, whether it should be or shouldn't be a deposit, just from a legal standpoint.
So, go ahead.
No, I'm all set. Continue, please.
I just wondered whether that was legal or not legal.
I don't know if it is. I would say it probably isn't, but I don't know that answer. Maybe there's someone here who can answer to that. I am not the person.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you, President Cooper. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Kate.
How you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
Good. Hey, so Sean, from what I just heard, so when people come into your store, you're actually going to mention to them, like if they're buying a nip, just say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, could you please just bring these bottles back? Because otherwise we're not going to be able to sell them to you anymore and you're going to have to go somewhere else. Is it
right? And that's going to be part of the message, Kate, is there's going to be signing on front doors. We're going to have uniform signing throughout the city. And we were actually talking to the mayor and Christine yesterday about this yesterday. In regards to, they were talking about maybe some outside signing about, don't litter and this kind of stuff that might coordinate with what we had going on inside. So it's going to be a big education piece. And yeah, absolutely. We're going to tell them if it doesn't come back, then there's a chance we're going to lose it.
So on the other side of it, Sean, can you tell us approximately, like, if this was banned, especially right now during COVID, where you've already been hit super duper duper hard, how much on a daily basis, what's your profit with these nips?
I probably straight profit on an average day, just my store. I cannot speak to everyone else, but on my store, $500-600 a day.
Ooh. Wow.
And that's just the nips. That's not talking about anything else that they're buying, Kate.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Not a problem.
Sean, I have a follow-up question to your program in Gardner.
Sure. And I wasn't the store, just so you know.
What was the outcome of their program, right? They have an in-store bring back your nips program or something, whatever they call it. What's been the success in Gardner to
right? Oh, great question. So what happened was within, I don't know if it was a couple of months or 6 months, whatever the time frame was, but they actually collected, I think it was 50,000 nips, of which they donated for them. It was like 2,500 or something like that to their cleanup crews and keep Gardner beautiful and that kind of stuff there. So they had 50,000 of them that came back to them. So it was pretty impactful. And Gardner, I live not far from Gardner. It's not the metropolis that Attleboro is. So I think we can do a heck of a lot more.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Martin? Sean, thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Councilor Jackson. Vice President Jackson, actually, I'm going to just surrender I'm just going to surrender the floor to you for a minute.
Okay.
Because I see flashing red lights out in front of my house.
Then I would wish you would go, please.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice President Jackson, we have, we're going to try and bring George Reyes back into the meeting to provide testimony.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. Hello, Mr. Reyes.
Mr. Reyes still does not have a microphone active.
Okay.
So he won't be able to.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next person. We'll let him know that, please.
Okay. The next person to speak is neither for nor against.
Okay, but we're still on against. Do we have anybody else still against?
None that have provided the information that's required.
Okay. So then if there's nobody else here to speak against, calling it once, calling it twice, calling it 3 times, we will now listen to discussion from people who are neither for nor against.
Okay. We have Stephanie Gray of 66 Orange Street.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Can you raise your volume a bit more, please, Stephanie?
Oh, sure.
I can hear you.
Take my headphones off.
There you go.
Okay, great. Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to talk about, I participated on Saturday with the, my husband and I participated in the Keep Attleboro Beautiful cleanup.
Thank you.
And no problem. And we started at the Big Lots on South Main Street and walked about an 8 square block perimeter. We picked up 3 garbage bags full of trash and counted 108 nip bottles in about 2 hours. And this afternoon, we picked it up around our house. So this afternoon, I walked back with my kids in that same area, filled a trash bag in 30 minutes, and I came away with 42 more nip bottles. I run in Attleboro almost every day and have witnessed the consistent litter problem plaguing our community. In particular, I've noticed the nip bottles. And while I'd like to see a widespread reduction in single-use plastics, and I'm grateful that the council has the opportunity to address the litter problem in our community. While at the municipal level, I'd see a deposit program and coordinated regular cleanups aimed at reducing the nip litter problem in Attleboro. I do believe that if it can't be guaranteed, that a ban on nip should be considered.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gray? Any questions from the council? Thank you very much, Stephanie. We appreciate you being here this evening. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Councilor Kobus.
I was just waving bye.
Oh.
Bye.
Hi. Thank you very much, Stephanie.
Vice President Jackson, Joe Caponegro has expressed interest to speak. I don't have.
I'd love to hear from Joe Caponegro.
I don't have his address yet, so maybe we can ask him to provide that, please.
Okay, I will. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Kate, how are you?
Good. Can you I'm very good. Thank you very much. I hope you're doing well and your family is also. Could you please just for the record, state your name and address?
Yes, it's 903 Pike Avenue, Attleboro. I tried putting it in, but I just couldn't find the means to do that.
Yeah, we all have little problems with this little computer system, but
I just wanted to speak in general. In general, I'm against this proposed ordinance. And as I wrote in a letter, I think it was last month, we have to consider what the people want and stop trying to tell us what we need. There are certain things I'm not in agreement with, and that's such as the single-use water bottles. My experience in the AYBA, when people would bring these single water bottles into the gym, or the as far as baseball, or as far as any of these athletic events where somebody wants to bring a bottle of water, pick it up at the local store and what. And no, I don't see a lot of these littering around town, and it's just people want to be able to buy a case of these waters. They don't want to have to be doing a brittle all the time and filling up a cup to bring with them. They want to buy things like that. These plastic straws, and I'm neither for nor against the plastic straws in one sense, but I was told by somebody that the plastic straws are very important for some of the elderly and the disabled, that they be able to bend the straws properly. And so that's a consideration. The styrofoam food containers, I saw at a place that I go to down at Cape that they started, any of the takeout food was put in the non-polystyrene or whatever the proper wording is for it, containers. So I don't see as far as a real problem with that, but I do, it just popped in my mind how the food is processed and sold at the supermarkets. Most of them are in a polystyrene as far as dish, and I don't know if using some sort of paper product would contaminate the food at all or cause problems there. So that's got to be of consideration too. It sounds in general that we have more of a pollution problem, and there are certain, as far as problems with the plastics themselves, but you could just, going to be substituting with something else. And I'm just going to end in saying I appreciate what other cities and towns do, but almost at every hearing I speak to, I say, what other cities and towns do, that's up to them. We are Attleboro, and we should do what we want to do, not necessarily what some other city or town does. And so in general, except for the styrofoam, the polystyrene, takeout containers, I think, can easily be substituted. I've seen them substituted, but in general, the other things should be allowed. It's what the people want, and it isn't the job of the city to tell us what we should drink our water out of, or what soap we should be using to wash, or things like that. I'm just totally against that. Thank you.
thank you, Joe. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Caponegro? Any questions from any of the counselors? Thank you, Joe, so much for your testimony.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak neither for nor against?
That is all the people who have expressed interest in speaking tonight.
Thank you very much, Jim. Ms. Ravad, excuse me, would you like to, excuse me. So moving right along. Ms. Holmes, would you like to keep this public hearing open, or would you like to close it?
Close it, please.
I'm sorry?
Have it closed, please.
Thank you very much. We'll declare this public hearing closed. Mr. Vod, would you please go on to the reading of the next public hearing?
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 7-14, Mercury Waste Reduction.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Mr. Jones, do we have anybody that wants to speak in favor?
All people have spoken.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to go through it the way that we normally go through it. Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak against? Anyone here to speak against? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Council Holmes, would you like to declare this meeting open or closed?
Closed, please.
Thank you. That ordinance is closed. That public hearing is closed. Moving right along. Ms. Ravad, would you please go on to the reading of the next public hearing?
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 7-15, neonicotinoid reduction. I know I didn't get that one right.
You did a good job, let me tell you. Perfect effort. Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Do we have anybody on board to speak in opposition, Mr. Jones?
No.
Thank you. Anybody here to speak in neither favor or opposed? Neither for nor against? Council Holmes, would you like to declare this public hearing closed?
Yes, please.
Thank you. That public hearing is now closed. Ms. Ravad, if you move right along, that would be great. Thank you.
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 7-16, single-use plastic water bottle waste reduction.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anybody here to speak against? Anybody speak against? Anybody here to speak neither for nor against? Neither for nor against? Councilor Holmes, would you like to declare this public hearing closed?
Please, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ravad, if you'd read the next public hearing, please.
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 7-17, microplastics in water reduction.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anybody speak against? Anyone there to speak against? Anybody there to speak neither for nor against? Neither for nor against. Councilor Holmes, would you like to declare this public hearing closed as well?
Please.
Thank you. We'll declare this public hearing closed.
All right, I'm back.
Happy to see you.
Thank you. Where'd we leave off, Counselor?
We left off at the microplastics. And so far, all of the public hearings have been closed. So we would move right along to 7-19 and 11-22.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're on public hearing number 10. Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 7-19, plastic straw reduction.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Thank you. Councilor Holmes, do you see any reason to keep that public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. Moving along to the next public hearing, continued public hearing.
Continued public hearing relative to the following amendment to the City of Attleboro Ordinance 11-22, use of balloons.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor Holmes, would you like to close that public hearing?
Yes, please.
Thank you. That public hearing is also closed. And that, I believe, wraps up the public hearings and the continued public hearings for this evening.
Yep.
All right. And we will move right along to the mayor's communication.
November 17th, 2020. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from the Director of Veteran Services, Ben Quell, regarding the donation of $300 in Stop and Shop gift cards from the Disabled American Veterans Chapter 91 of Attleboro. In accordance with the section 1-2 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the city of Attleboro. Copies are in your packet.
Thank you. City Property and Claims Committee, please. Ms. Ravad, you know what I was planning to do and I didn't say before? I was planning to waive the reading and just assign by numbers.
Okay, all right.
Anyone objects to that? Any objection from the council? I see thumbs up. Here we go. Item number 2 is Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, please. Item number 3 is Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please. Item number 4 is again Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee. Item number 5 is City Property and Claims Committee, please. And finally, item number 6 is the Zoning and Land Use Committee. And moving on to other clerks' communications, Ms. Ravad.
Attleboro City Clerk Communications, November 17, 2020. A second petition from Pick Up Attleboro to stop the ban on small-sized bottles.
Ordinance Committee, please.
A proposal from local liquor store owners within the city, Attleboro city limits to assist in the cleanup of Attleboro and the continued need to make Attleboro beautiful and how the owners can help.
Ordinances Committee, please.
A letter from Jesse Tessier, VP, Friends of the 10 Mile and Buckland Brook in favor of the ban on plastic bottles.
Ordinance Committee, please.
A letter from Deb Patnick of Massachusetts Sierra Club Chapter, Director for Boston, in favor of the proposed set of plastic ordinances.
That should also go to the Ordinance Committee, please.
The following 8 applications were received for Class 2 licenses. 97 Emery Street LLC, 97 Emery Street with 7 customer spaces and 30 display. J Motor Group, 1856 County Street, 4 customer parking spaces, 20 display. Cartown USA, 680 Washington Street, 9 customer parking spaces and 20 display. Lime Rock Motors, 722 Washington Street, 4 customer spaces, 48 display. State Line Auto Brokers, 1115 Washington Street, 6 customer, 42 display, and 55 storage spaces. Landmark Auto Sales, Inc., 537 Washington Street, with 3 customer spaces and 15 display. New England Cars, Inc., 923 Washington Street, with 7 customer spaces and 33 display. Best Buy Automotive and Tire, Inc., 925 and 932 Washington Street, with 8 customer spaces and 40 display spaces.
License Committee, please.
And that's all I have for other communications.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any, oh, wait, I got to do a roll call vote. I'm sorry in advance. Roll call vote to go into Committee of the Whole. We'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes? Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are now in Committee of the Whole. If there's anyone that would like to address the city on city business, now would be the time.
There are none who have expressed interest.
Great, thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. At this time, we'll go on to committee reports. And beginning with Councilor Blair.
We have nothing to bring forward this evening, Mr. President, but I request a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor DeSimone.
Yes, thank you, President Cooper. For Traffic and Transportation Committee, I have 2 items, please, from the docket of July 23rd, 2020. I would like to call for a public hearing on December 15th of 2020 for the following item: to extend the no parking area on Scott Street southerly side from Route 1 to pole 2321, approximately 330 feet from Route 1.
Second.
Thank you. Motion. Is there any additional comments? Councilor DeSimone.
No, President Cooper. We discussed it at the meeting. This has been pending for some time. I'm happy to move it, keep it moving.
Thank you. A roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Second, from the docket of March 17th, 2020, I move to strike the following item: a communication from Tom McIsaac of Falcon Drive requesting a stop sign be installed at the intersection of Bear Court Drive and Falcon Drive.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments?
President Cooper, just to a brief recap, this request was made because neighbors were concerned with people driving too fast through what is a very small enclosed neighborhood. The Traffic Study Commission concluded that, as you all probably have heard before, that a stop sign is not a traffic calming measure, wouldn't be appropriate at that location. So I emailed Mr. McIsaac, gave him a couple of other suggestions, and that concludes that bit of business.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you, President Cooper. That concludes the business of Traffic and Transportation Committee. I'd like to ask for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for capital improvement and city development. Now we have one item to bring before the council this evening from the docket of November 17, 2020. I move to call for a public hearing on December 1st, 2020 regarding the request to waive permitting and inspection fees associated with the Attleboro Pawtucket Water Interconnection Project. In accordance with section 3-8.3 of the revised ordinances, the mayor requests this honorable body to waive the following: stormwater management permit fee, the minor site plan review application fee, the building permit fee, waive 100% of the fees as required. With the electrical inspection fee, waive 35% of inspection fees as required. 65% of the electrical inspection fee cannot be waived, as that portion of the fee goes directly to the contracted inspector as a payment for their services rendered.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments, Councilor Conti?
Yes, Mr. President, this motion originated with our city budget director, who pointed out that it's not appropriate or not economically feasible for the city to be charging itself permits fees for the work being conducted on the site. And I agree and hope my councilors will support the measure. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We'll have a public hearing on that matter on December 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the business the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Waterman.
Yes, reporting from the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee. We have 3 items of business from the docket of November 17th, 2020. I move to confirm the appointment of Viju Iyengar, 18 Steeplechase Circle, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Cultural Council, term to expire February 2023.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments, Council Waterman?
She's a very enthusiastic woman with a lot of experience in the arts.
Okay. Any additional comments from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And from the docket of November 17th, 2020, I also move to confirm the appointment of Karina Bonenfant, 27 O'Donnell Drive, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Traffic Study Commission, term to expire February 2023.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
I strongly support Karina as well. She has lived in the city a long time. She knows the city, is a real estate agent, and it'll be very helpful.
Thank you. A roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And from the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to confirm the appointment of John Bender, 437 Reed Street, Attleboro, to fill an expired term on the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member, term to expire February 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
Just that John is very interested in this position, and his motivation, I'm sure, will make a difference.
Great. Any additional questions or comments? Councilor Delissio.
Thank you. I 100% support this nomination. John Bender is a sergeant in the Air Force National Guard. He's a geologist by trade. He's someone who's very heavily involved in the community and different efforts. He has a passion for this, and I think that passion will do him well and serve the Zoning Board of Appeals well as well.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And that concludes the business of the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee. We'll meet at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much, President Cooper. Reporting for the Public Works Committee from the docket of November 17th, 2020. I move to appropriate $31,572 from the Water Enterprise Fund Returned Earnings Account to the Water Enterprise Fund Replacement Truck Account for the Water Department request to purchase a new Ford Ranger 4x4 Super Cab with a 6-foot bed and a toolbox to replace a 2004 Ford Ranger with 145,000 miles.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments? Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much. Along with this motion and the next two, it's all from the Water Department. We had a meeting down at the Water Department yard on the 24th of October. We saw, just what kind of condition all their trucks are in. And we have since, all of us have received a follow-up from Superintendent Wunschel with regards to the rest of the vehicles and how she wants to rotate them, which I know eventually Councilor Delicio, we're going to be discussing that as well. So all three of these motions go along with each other.
Great. Any additional questions? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yeah. Yes, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
yes, I can, yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to appropriate $29,972 from the Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to the Water Enterprise Fund Replacement Truck Account to purchase a new Ford Ranger 4x4 Super 6-foot bed and toolbox to replace a 2007 Ford F-150 that has 246,000 miles.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
Thank you. None. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to appropriate $65,827 from the Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings account to the Water Enterprise Fund Replacement Truck Account to purchase a new Ford F-350 4x4 diesel super cab with an 8-foot service body to replace a 2009 Ford F-250 utility body with 117,000 miles.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
No, sir.
Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. I have no further business this evening for the Public Works Committee. I do not have a dog, so that's not my dog barking.
That's mine.
But I'd
That's
like,
Buster Brown.
sounds cute.
Yeah.
I would like to call for a committee meeting at the appropriate time next week.
Thank you, President Jackson. Councilor Delicio.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting for budget and appropriations. I have one motion from the docket of November 17th, 2020. I move to transfer $230 from account library equipment maintenance to account library previous years for the library to pay a fiscal 2020 bill from G&G Fire Protection.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments?
I have none, as we spoke about this earlier this evening.
Great. Roll call vote will begin with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson, Ms. Jackson.
You can skip Ms. Jackson.
Okay. Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
10 yeas, no nays,
One absent.
and 1 absent.
Yep. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, President Cooper. I have one quick announcement that the Attleboro Drive-Through Food Drive will be hosting a Home for the Holidays drive-through food drive this Saturday, 11/21, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Sanford Street parking lot. And that is all the business that I have for budget and appropriations. Would like to call for a meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Counselor Cobus.
Thank you. Reporting for the Zoning and Land Use Committee, we have one item tonight. From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move that the council give consent to submit the draft pre-disaster hazard mitigation plan update / municipal vulnerability preparedness plan to the state.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments?
This is the plan that was presented earlier today by by Nick Wiley from Gary Rajan's office, and this is just to send the plan to the state for review and comment. It's not for us to adopt the measure itself.
Great. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And that concludes the business for the Zoning and Land Use Committee. I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Counselor Dolan.
Hi, reporting for Licenses Committee. I have 4 motions. President Cooper, would you like me to waive the reading of all the individual for the class 2, or do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, I think you can just read the name of the.
Okay. From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to approve the following application for a Class 1 license. Cerrone, Chevy, Buick, and GMC.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
No comments.
Thank you. Roll call vote will begin with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to approve the following applications for a Class 2 license. 100% Auto Sales, Tri-Town Auto Sales, M&J Auto Sales, Landis Family Auto Sales, Pinecrest Motors, Vashon Motor Company, Byrider, GMAC, Better Auto, Paris Auto Body, and C&A Millennium.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments or questions?
Not from me.
Great. Thank you. Motion is in order, and the roll call will begin with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delizio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to approve the following application. Excuse me, my apologies. Let me start that again. From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to approve the application for Market Basket Supermarket on Newport Avenue for an automated amusement device license for a mini carousel and truck.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delizio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
President Cooper, I'm getting some type of feedback. Is anybody else hearing?
Yeah, I was just about to say it's you're not speaking if you could. What I think is happening is somebody is in close proximity is also watching.
Yeah.
Did I read the class 3 license?
No.
No, you did not.
Can I continue then?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. From the docket of November 17th, 2020, I move to approve the following application for a class 3 license, Tri-Town Auto at 1850 County Street.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments or questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delizio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. That's all the business I have for the License Committee and would like to call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you. Reporting for City Property and Claims Committee, I have two motions from the docket of November 3rd, 2020. I move to accept the anonymous gift of $180 in Stop and Shop gift cards to the Health Department in accordance with revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments or questions?
No, I have none.
Thank you. A roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delizio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of November 3rd, 2020, I move to accept the generous gift from the Emmett Larkin Memorial Foundation of $250 in Stop and Shop donated to the Health Department in accordance with the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments?
No, I have none.
Thank you. Seeing none, roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delizio,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And that is all the business City Property and Claims committee has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great, thank you. Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee has no business this evening. We'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think reporting for the Special Committee on Rules and Procedures, we have nothing to bring before the council this evening.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold the item from the docket of May 19th.
Great, thank you.
And we look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Excellent, thank you. Where's my, there is no old business. There is one item of new business. And for that item, I will again recognize Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
I move to refer for study and recommendation the following: to present for approval local option 940 CMR. That's a code of Massachusetts regulations 29.01, 2, 3, and 10. The purpose of 940 CMR is to interpret, enforce, and effectuate the purpose of the open meeting law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18 through 25.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Councilor Conti.
President, this is a nicely abbreviated piece of new business to do a couple of things that bring us into the 21st century. To begin with, it will allow for councilors to participate remotely, even following the emergency discontinuance of the pandemic. Secondly, it allows the city to create a message board on the city website for all meetings, giving the public an excellent opportunity of seeing what's going on in all the various committees and councils all in one place on the city website. There are small permutations of that need to be revised by the committee that you appoint this to. But I have spoken with the mayor and he is eager to see the recommendations and he's eager to send it back down to the council to, as I said, bring us into the 21st century. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Dolan first and then DeSimone.
This is the same thing that we discussed that Councilor DeSimone brought forward, right? That she did all the research on. Is that what that is? That is correct. This is the same thing, right? I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something different that.
Yes,
Okay.
I apologize for not giving Councilor DeSimone credit. This is truly her initiative, and somehow it wound up in my lap because I think I'm chairman of the Rules and Committee, Rules and Procedure Committee. It's well thought out, and it's a great code from the Massachusetts regulation that will bring Attleboro forward greatly.
Thank you. Councilor DeSimone.
President Cooper, in all due respect to my brother, Councilor Conti, I want to clarify that my understanding of this CMR is not that it would replace the present system we have, that by virtue of the governor's executive order lets this body meet fully remotely. My understanding of this regulation, of course, it will be explored in committee, but is that it would let a counselor or two, as needed for medical and emergency reasons, appear remotely while there was in fact a quorum in person present at a dedicated location.
Yes,
that's what I
understand
this to do.
More eloquently than I did. I was trying to be brief.
And I say that, I just wanted to state for the record, and I say that because in the proposed rules that is also before this body, there is in fact language that would permit, if again pursuant to a government order, the governor's order or another emergency declaration, would permit this body to meet fully remotely as it is doing so now. But this does not encompass that situation. They're two separate. There's two separate things.
And that explains the reason why I decided for the special committee to not bring out the rules and procedures tonight for a council vote. I would prefer to see this pass through the council and the mayor's office before we bring the rules and procedures to the council floor.
Understood. Thank you, President Cooper. Thank you, Councilor Conti.
I agree. I think just the only part you missed in the explanation, Rick, was the under certain circumstances, right? It allows for remote participation by certain individuals under certain circumstances, was my take when I read it, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's the way we're going when people need to participate remotely for legally acceptable reasons. That's what we'll do. And
Mr. President, it appeals to me because there are many city councilors who travel for their work, and when they're out of town, this would allow them to participate in the council as if it was just like tonight. And I think that that benefits the council. I think it benefits the public, and I think it's a really good measure. And that concludes my comments.
Agreed. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes, I only heard about half of that from Richard. His voice was coming through real bad, but this just gets assigned to committee anyway, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. I'm going to refer that matter to both the Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee and to the administration. Thank you. And last on the list, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. A roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Oops. Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Stay safe. 9:30.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.